G'day, mate, and welcome to Friday Facts 315. We've got new test servers and I've got a new mojo. Hey, mate.
What do you mean new? Same old mojo. Same old grumpy, cranky one.
Okay, I wasn't going to say it out loud, but it's entirely true.
What do you mean? Have a good Phil Bogan.
Good bogan, all about the facts. Yep. So,
There you go, Stinson.
we've got new test servers. So the guys over at Woob bought some high-end PCs, and there's going to be some tangents on this one. I'm going to start off with that because I've been through the Reddit and I've been through both the Reddit discussion and the forums discussion. There's been lots of people questioning why not servers, why not virtualization, which I want to touch on whilst they have a mojo here. So we'll go through the Friday Facts first. They bought two CPUs, a i9-9900 80XE, which is 18 cores, and a Ryzen 3900X 12 core. And I looked at the prices on these, Mojo. Guess the price for the i9.
If local price, it'd be like 1,200, something like that.
A local Australian price or local their price?
Local Australian price, probably like 1,200.
Oh, higher.
Well, higher. Higher, you say?
Yeah.
2,000?
Higher.
Ooh, that's pretty high.
It is.
Hey, that's not cheap.
In Australian dollars, it's $2,999. Now, I admit
3,000.
I haven't looked for the absolute cheapest price. I went with the first search result, but you know, there's maybe $100 difference between the cheapest in Australia and this price. So, $3,000 CPU for Intel,
Which is probably a €300 CPU over there.
Oh. No, I'm willing to bet it'd still be like $1,000. It is it is the extreme edition of the i9, so it's the premium Intel CPU. Guess the price for the Ryzen 9 3900X.
Now this one I should know. I should, but I don't. But this should be at least 1,000 as well. No, it's cheap, but it should be around the 1,000 mark. It'd be 900.
It's $809 marked down to $790 currently. So a massive difference in the price of these two CPUs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just there is one hell of a difference between these two CPUs, and I love the stuff they've put on the desk. So like, there's a NVMe drive, there's a stack of RAM, there's a motherboard, I assume.
The X299 Taichi from AS Rock, which is questionable being AS Rock, although they're kind of boutique Taiwan in the Taiwanese spectrum.
I'd put them as a budget motherboard brand personally, but you know,
they were in 2009 when they were part of ASUS, but they're their own brand. They're their own brand now. They're sort of like, I guess the closest equivalent would be like Power Color, but again, more boutique than Power Color.
Yeah,
Power Color's like just rock bottom.
So yeah, motherboard, and they've got a fairly standard cooler for like, these are both extreme edition CPUs. You know,
Standard cooler. That's a H100i from Corsair.
It is, but it's only a 240. I would have expected 360s. Just saying.
Yeah, it's more than enough for a i9.
Oh, this is
ish.
Yeah, this is a high end. Look, I admit they're not going to do any overclocking or anything, but you know, yeah. So that's what they've got laid out on the table for one system, and then the same for the other system. I do notice in the background, in the first image, we've got 4 tubes of green stuff, blue stuff, red stuff, and yellow stuff between the two monitors. No idea what that is.
Yeah.
And in the second picture, we have again between the two monitors those glass bottles with cork lids.
Yeah, I actually saw that before and I was wondering what the hell was going on.
I looked on, I think it was on the forums, and Clonan told everybody their potions. I'm expecting their healing potions because, you know, they've been working with servers and, you know, you stay up late configuring everything and, you know, health potion, mana potion, one of the two. So yeah, pretty similar, like, hardware laid out for the Ryzen, although I think they stepped up motherboard brand wise for the Ryzen CPU.
Yeah, so that's an X. Who makes that? the Aorus Master, Gigabyte. They make the
Gigabyte.
Aorus Master, which I think is $1,000. I think.
I think that's probably a little bit too high, but it's definitely higher end than what they've got for the Intel.
I might be thinking of the MSI one though, but yeah, I'm pretty sure the Aorus Master is like top end.
It's that I know from my recent purchase, the Gigabyte have like a blah blah blah, Master Edition, and then there's like 8 different tiers of Master motherboards. So it could be from the low end, which I would still put as the medium sort of high end, all the way to the I'm not paying that much for a motherboard. It's not worth my time and effort. Which is one of the decisions I had when purchasing my motherboard. So yeah, we've got 2 brand new CPUs, and you can tell, and we'll go through the Friday facts, you can tell that nobody's really hardcore into hardware inside the Woob office. So they're using the hardware to test for their test suite in heavy mode to run a benchmark. Heavy mode basically saves and reloads the game every single game tick and compares the CRC of the map before and after. It's super, super slow to run, but the heavy test is critical to find any problems with issues. Now, you can run heavy mode with mods, and you might have played with this, Mojo? Yes? No?
Yeah, you can actually run it from the command line.
Yeah. And when... I don't know if that's different to what they're doing for this particular suite, but or this particular test. But heavy mode basically confirms that mods, in the case of running it for mods, is their multiplayer safe. And
yeah, and a lot of really tricky, obscure crashes and desyncs are usually found this way.
Yeah. Or loading up a multiplayer game and seeing what happens. And even then, I've had multiplayer mods that aren't multiplayer safe that have run multiplayer for a day, 3 days, a week before they've started offering desyncs left, right, and center. But if you put them in heavy mode, pretty much they'll start desyncing straight away. So yeah, they've got a standard CPU in their office for all the devs, which is an i9 7900X 10-core CPU, which runs these heavy tests in about 530 seconds, which in real time is 8 minutes and 50 seconds. It's a long time for a dev who you're paying, in theory, a significant amount too, to sit around and wait for results. So the idea was they get this 2 big new servers, and the devs could just push this to the server, have the server run it, and they could just continue on with the next task and hope nothing goes wrong. With the Intel i9 CPU, they got the time down to 400 seconds, which is shaving 2 minutes. Except the Ryzen CPU, it actually is slower.
Yeah, it actually managed to go slower.
Which is funny, because I haven't actually looked up the 7900X, but from memory, it's going to be lower clock speed and less cores as well.
Yeah, it's I don't really remember much of it. It was more of a micro step over the 6000 series, the 6700 and such.
I remember the 6600, and then everybody sort of jumped to the 8700. The 7 series just sort of got...
Yeah, 7 series was blink and miss, because I've got the one after it, the 8700K.
I'm trying to look this up on the other screen. Okay, so they did some digging online and some research, and they found the answer that was RAM. When they ordered parts, they didn't give any thought to RAM whatsoever, and they just grabbed some standard 16 gig 266 megahertz sticks to throw in all the slots. So they've got lots of RAM, it's just really slow.
Base clock, probably C25, something like that. It's actually really funny, because anybody who knows anything about doing megabases knows that Factorio needs fast RAM.
Well, it's funny because it comes up in Reddit all the time, and there's even I can't remember the chap's name, and I do apologize, but he's had like the PC to benchmark bases for the last year and a half, and people, whenever they're doing a megabase, they're like, we're going to send it to him and have him benchmark it and see how it compares to the other big bases of Reddit, and yeah, he's got, I think he's got an 8700 overclocked, or maybe it's an 8900 overclocked, and then he's just got the lowest timing RAM that was humanly possible to put in this machine. And I know when I was looking at my PC, you told me you paid an absolute fortune for lower time RAM and didn't find
Yes.
much of a difference, but there was some sort of difference.
There was 5 to 6 UPS to be had between the 2666 C15s and this 3200 C4.
Yeah. But then again, they've dropped $3,000 on a CPU. So you spend a little bit of money on the RAM.
Yeah.
So they've bought this G-Skill 3600 MHz Trident RGB Neo, which I again looked up. And it's pretty. Like, don't get me wrong. It's pretty. It's got RGBs. It's fancy.
Mine's RGB. That was all I could get.
I think I've got RGBs in my case, except it's got a solid side panel, so I really couldn't tell you. But the timings on this RAM is 18, 22, 22, 42.
So that's still, well, this CAS rating doesn't matter as much with Ryzen's, but it's still probably not the most amazing.
Well, if you just dropped $3,000 on a CPU, would you buy this RAM, Mojo?
I would have to see the others around it, but at the very least, you probably, well, you want something that is 3600 megahertz if I was to buy that CPU.
It is 3600 megahertz. It is 3600. It's also, and this is two 16 gig sticks. It's $340 for two 16s. And you're talking about 4 slots, so you're talking $700 on RAM.
Yeah. It's not cheap.
It's not cheap, but it's. I would have probably bought something with a little bit better timings.
Yeah, I think it's still sort of shit in the dark there.
Yeah. So after they put the new RAM in, they were much better than what they had previously, and it was close to their expectations at still 450 seconds compared to the Intel test at 400 seconds. So Intel wins, I guess. We knew beforehand that Ryzen liked fast RAM, but we didn't realize how much the significant difference it could make. So I guess the lesson from this Friday Facts is single core clock speed matters most as far as Factorio is concerned, and faster RAM is better.
That's still valid.
Yeah, and faster RAM is better.
Yep, fast RAM's better. More, and the Ryzen likes as much megahertz as you can throw out to a point. Ideally, a multiple of the Infinity Fabric, which is why the 3600 is so good for it. Yeah,
again, one of those quirks of AMD. So yeah, they got both of these machines to run test automatically after each commit, and they're very happy with the results. New i9 can compile and run the heavy tests faster than an old i7 4790K can compile and run just normal tests. So big improvement there.
Yeah, that's actually kind of worrying that they were still using a 4790 for development.
Well,
like this stuff you want done fast, and actually, software development like that's kind of weird because you just need so much processing power to save time because you don't want to be sitting around waiting for stuff.
Well, see, it's funny because, as I said, I went over to both Reddit and the forums and looked to see what people had said about this particular one because we had a bit of time this time around rather than trying to get it rushed out on a Friday night to have them add more to the Friday Facts after the fact. But lots of people were asking, like, why don't you use server-grade hardware? Why don't you virtualize it and have just one beefy machine to run all the stuff that they've got shown in their server room? And the simplest answer was they're in the Czech Republic, which everybody knows. Access to server-grade stuff is not exactly easy there or convenient, and you'd have to probably have someone with a bit more knowledge than what they've got currently to run a server. And then on top of all that, server grade stuff is expensive. I'm sure you've dealt with server grade stuff, Mojo, yes?
Oh yeah.
It's absolutely incredibly expensive for what you get. It does have, redundancy and all this sort of stuff that's great and ideal for a business scenario, but when you're a games dev studio working on games that you want to test on home market PCs, not server grade architecture, PCs is what it is. Your standard high-end gaming PC is going to run rings around anything server grade.
particularly for the sort of application that they're doing, because they're at the end of the day they're still running heavy mode, which is part of the game, which is a very single thread optimized task,
Yes,
single core optimized task.
I'm willing to bet they're running multiple instances of that through some sort of Perl script or however else
Maybe.
they've done it. So they're probably running 16 instances of the exact same game in heavy mode, doing 1/16 of the total test or whatever it happens to be. But yeah,
Because I would expect that to perform considerably worse on a Xeon or Zen, or just any Zens even.
well, look, any time you're talking about a server grade hardware, you're generally talking about half the clock speed with many more cores. Now that's not a guarantee. You can get some really high end server grade CPUs, but they're going to cost about as much as like 4 or 5 whole dedicated high end gaming PCs, and that's what it really comes down to. Do you want to have 5 high end gaming PCs that, you know, they have most components come now with a 1 to a 3 year warranty? You don't hang on to a gaming PC for longer than 3 years.
Yeah, they're only made to last 2 to 4.
Yeah, you know, a server you might hold on to for 5 or 6 years because servers move slower, and businesses don't tend to upgrade them. They just tend to like put a new one in, have it take over new tasks and migrate tasks up, and have the old one slide down the list of things that it has to do.
The chain, as it gets delegated to ever a more ancillary sort of off to the side tasks that no one gets.
Yeah, or even sometimes they keep the old ones for redundancy. But yeah, they work in an office environment where they've got, I don't know, I think they've got about 10 or so devs on site. And that also means every couple of years you have potentially 10 new desktop motherboard CPU RAM combinations that can be pulled out because everybody in the office had to upgrade to later everything to compile faster, run everything faster, so on and so forth. And that stuff then becomes free server hardware.
Effectively.
So that's the other thing they did this week. They went and organized the server room. So this week spent some time moving the servers from their old home of the floor into the new racks, and are moving a lot of the PC junk that accumulated around the office and the server room. Hey Mojo, how many office environments have you dealt with servers on the floor?
Not many actually.
Oh, really?
I was lucky. The sort of stuff that I dealt with, they actually put the time and the effort and the money in.
Oh,
generally.
Wow. Okay. No, I've dealt with servers on the floor, servers in cabinets. I had one that accidentally got built into a wall, or actually, it got built into a cabinet. There was one door of the cabinet that got screwed shut, and that's where the server happened to be. And when the cabinet got installed around the server, because they knew it couldn't be turned off, they just happened to put a cabinet around it. Or the switch that I only ever found in a workshop by tracking the network cable to find out where it was, to find it under a 3 cubic feet of sawdust and working perfectly.
Perfectly in air quotes.
No, it worked. Like, the whole network was working. We were upgrading their switches, but this old one worked perfectly fine, absolutely covered in sawdust that had been there for years. Yeah, I've seen all sorts of different computer abuse, and I love that the fact that they've put it on cabinets. Somebody asked why in the bottom left-hand corner there's obviously a toolkit, and they looked online, and the picture they came up for the other one was a jerry can.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's what it looked like a Bosch toolkit and something else, and I couldn't recognize.
Well, the Bosch toolkit is like, you know, it's that green all the time. That's an easy one.
Yeah.
The other one, I don't think it's a jerry can. I think it's going to be another toolkit, but it could be a jerry can.
I reckon it'll be a toolkit, but it'll be a no-name thing.
Yeah, probably. And then on the right-hand side, like bottom right-hand corner, that blue thing, is that a roll of garbage bags?
I think it is.
And then the silver monitor, is that a Windows key just like written on the post-it pad?
I couldn't tell.
I did. I zoomed in. It's like VGA is this machine, DVI is that machine, HDMI is that machine. Because I'm always curious when people leave post-it notes, you know, stuck to their computer and stuff. It's like, what did you write that was so important on your post-it note? But yeah, this is their server room. And as you can see, it's all consumer grade stuff. None of it's server level. They don't need server level.
Everything that's running on servers is running on actual co-located, like the Factorio website. They don't host that themselves, as far as I'm aware.
I would assume they wouldn't because it's just too much reliability.
Yeah, but it's unreliable, and you want something that, with power and an internet connection.
Yeah, and you want to make sure that if it gets DOSed, it's somebody else's problem. Yeah. No, they're running everything on consumer grade stuff, which is like perfect for a game dev studio. If they were a business where they were, I don't know, any sort of medium business up, I'd start saying, maybe it's time to look at servers. But no, for a game dev studio, even. Look, I even think some of the big ones should be looking at more consumer grade stuff because they run things and they don't do things on servers that are not designed for servers.
A lot of them do. The one thing I don't see is Spidertron. They said they moved it into the rack as well.
Did they?
Yeah,
they
moved all the PC drunk cables, mice, fans, Spidertron, keyboards, SSDs, headphones.
Yeah.
Where's the damn Spidertron, damn it?
I'm guessing it's either just out of frame or, as you can see, they've put all the servers in one room, hard up against the corner of the room, smacked right up against one another to make sure the hot air comes out the back and keeps the Spidertron eggs warm. Because they need heat.
Yeah.
Need heat to incubate. So obviously
that would be the most likely answer.
Yep, they're incubating the Spidertron eggs for the next update, I'm sure.
Yep.
Yeah, confirmed here. Seen here first. Yep. Okay. So they got 10 servers. Some run tests, some run deployments. We're hoping to reduce this number in the future as we can have one beefy PC do the work that's currently handled by multiple older, slower ones. So that's one of those things. As PCs upgrade and that sort of stuff, like their deployment server, they've covered this in a Friday Facts.
Actually, come to think of it, admittedly, if they're doing build stuff, in that case, server grade stuff would make more sense and a bit of virtualization. Maybe a Threadripper would do that.
We'll see. Threadripper is sort of that halfway grade between.
It's halfway in between a Zen and a Xeon.
Yeah, it's halfway between your consumer grade and your server grade. But even then, like the one I can think of is their deploy server. So their deployment server does the tests. When the tests are done, it publishes it to the web page. It publishes it to Steam. It publishes to... Where else does it publish? GOG? Humble Bundle. No, not GOG. Maybe it's just straight to Humble Bundle. It publishes every single update to every different platform that Factorio is on, and it all does it automatically. And I don't think, like, even something like that, I don't think it's going to really get much benefit from having more cores to run things. I think it just comes down to, it's got to upload the Factorio.zip version, whatever version we're up to like 4 or 5 different spots. So yeah, I don't know. Obviously anything they've got happening on a few older computers, they can probably get rid of and just lower the power bill slightly. But I've always got an attitude of like, if you need extra PCs and you have old ones laying around, just give them shittier and shittier tasks that they can handle. Because you've already paid for the hardware, run it until it dies.
You already got it, so why not?
Yeah, throwing it out's not going to get you any benefit. The only thing you benefit from is if it's not running, you're saving a little bit of power. But let's be honest, in most countries, power is cheap enough that it really doesn't matter.
Generally, yeah.
And then we have the community spotlight for the Narvis invasion.
This video.
Yeah, this video, which I'm not going to play because it's weird to watch a video in a video, but it's really, really worth watching. So this week, Clonan spotted a post by Badgermer? Yeah, Ballgermer.
Yes.
It's a video of a modded base here where it respawned all the biter bases. He was in awe of just how different the game can feel once he started adding and combining a lot of mods, especially when it's coupled with the classic Red Alert 2 soundtrack. And I've got to admit, it brought back a lot of nostalgia for me just watching it. I think it's a 2-minute video. It's really, really short. But it was...
I skimmed it. Didn't really do much for me, although I never really played Red Alert 2.
I played a lot of Red Alert 1, not so much Red Alert 2, but the soundtrack for RA1 and RA2 is very, very similar. And it was just, it comes, I think, a lot down to he's just got so many different combat mods installed and biter mods installed. It looks like crap. I'm gonna forget the name of the movie. I already have the one with the bugs where the people lay.
Oh, that thing.
That movie,
Yeah.
Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
There we go.
I was actually going to withhold it from you and see how long it took.
I got there in the end. So
I was going to say Stargate?
No, not Stargate. I watched Stargate. No. As somebody who grew up playing a lot of old school RTS, and this has been really common among the Factorio dev team, they're all old school gamers, many of them RTS gamers. I fingers crossed the next Woob development project will be an RTS because they all love RTSs. So this video...
the tower defense game?
Well, I don't know. Don't know about tower defense. So yeah, these videos really hit on nostalgia for both Clonan and for me. What Clonan's really proud of is just how well the game supports mods. It's really amazing to me that they have an engine now and it can be extended and overhauled by mods and it just works, which is really, really true for Factorio. Their engine is pretty rock solid. It's why one of the reasons they get down to like 20 bugs on the forums. They've just fixed everything they possibly can as the game is developed. And he says here, when Factorio is done and they've made the game they set out to make, and their vision's complete, they're done, they wash their hands of further development of Factorio, they're really impressed that anybody can come along with their own ideas and rework what they've done, and even theoretically, which is the part I really like, turn off the base mod. So you can actually disable Factorio from Factorio and use their engine to do, in theory, anything.
You swap out base mod with your own mod.
Yeah, which lots of game companies don't do. They'll spend a lot of time working on an engine, and they're like, no, this is our engine. We're going to take this and we're going to develop 2 or 3 more games from it, where we're going to add more things to the engine whatsoever. But they don't ever let players interact with just the engine, and they can always interact with the engine plus the base game, but never the engine itself.
Games like Duke with the build engine and Doom are some of the examples I can think of which get about as close as... Because those were engines where you just plug in the base game.
Yeah. Doom didn't really have modding. The only way you could interact with it was decompiling it to get back to the base
kind
code.
of, because you could load in your own WADs, but at the same time you needed to patch the game in some way, I remember, to make it load the other WADs, because there was different types of WADs. There was iWADs and PWADs from memory. This is going back a long...
I think that's Doom 2 where we had different mods.
Well, it's the same engine, basically.
Yeah, but again, they updated the engine.
Oh, yeah.
So
I just remember they had this D-hack. You had to run that on against some mods to load.
Yeah, so again, that's like really, really early days, and even then, Doom 1 didn't officially have any mods whatsoever without decompiling the game and then basically reverse engineering it to write mods for it. Doom 2, they started adding some sort of mod support, and in Quake, they really added mod support. And I think
build was always just free for all.
Yeah.
With Duke, what was it? Shadow Warrior, Blood. I don't really remember anything. And yeah, very moddable engine, that one.
But yeah, so in theory, you can turn off the base game. Conan's not actually sure, and I read a couple of comments on Reddit saying people had tried and the game just crashes. And turns out you're meant to be able to do it from a command line, but nobody's really tested that recently, so maybe it works. But yeah, he believes that mod support will be critical to keep the game and community alive, continuing to improve the modding capabilities of the game, and has a strong possibility for post-1 support and updates. So they're already somewhat, at least have an inkling of thought what's happening past version 1.0 and what we're going to add and do, or are we just going to say, no, 1.0 is out and we're done, we'll fix bugs, but that's it. It looks like they'll at least continue, as they've done for a long time now, add further mod support and mod APIs that people have requested to do weird and wonderful things inside the Factorio engine, because it is a really beefy engine. It can do an awful lot. I don't know, have you ever seen, somebody did Flappy Birds inside the Factorio engine?
I seem to remember that.
Yeah.
I never saw much of it. I remember I saw it in passing, and I didn't take too much notice, admittedly.
Yeah.
It was one of the things that came and went. I think there was some other stuff going on at the time.
Factorio engine is pretty amazing. And in theory, yes, you should be able to turn it off and do who knows what with it in the future. Anyway, I think that's it for this Friday Facts. Yes? No? Anything more to add, Mojo?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Thank you guys, as always, for watching. Do hope you've enjoyed, and we'll catch you guys next week. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.